Grr.
It helps. It really helps. Grr.
Warming up.
Oops. We gotta share.
Yeah.
My bobs. I've got plenty. You just look like your nose is itchy in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Because you're a retriever.
Hi, Toby. Hi, hi, hi.
Here, look at you. Look at you. You feel sick, man. Facebook. And I need YouTube. Okay. My Twitter links are ready.
YouTube is running. Facebook is running.
Hey, Karen.
Hey, Karen.
Your first comment for today. Although in theory, there's one other person on YouTube and one other person on Facebook.
As always, please comment so we know you're online. We are officially starting in a few minutes. We've reshared stuff.
Our Thursday episodes tend to start late now because we grocery after work. It's become a habit for 2020. 2021, sorry. But oh, hello, Dane. Dane over on YouTube. Thank you again for the profile sketch thing.
Yes, those were awesome. I haven't used mine yet. I've barely been on Twitter.
That is a concern. So it's interesting that the villainous expansions are not listed as expansions, but pretty much they're their own game. But to be fair, each box is playable.
Yes, they're all considered standalone.
Yeah.
I guess we might as well start.
Sure. We didn't have a Disney villain shirt, so we just have Katya being very, very Russian.
Not that Russia is a villain. Just that.
Unless it's Cold War and you are American.
Or Katya. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us. We talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. Our episode tonight is an episode we've been delaying for quite some time.
Yes.
Because we were waiting for a shipment. And then it seemed appropriate this week because a certain trailer came up.
Yeah. Regardless of how you feel about the movie, yeah, we are doing the Disney Villainous. And that's the official full name. It's Disney Villainous. Although I would just say Villainous. But yeah, it is a card game that is unique to Disney. And surprisingly, for a non-original IP, it is an original game system, as far as I can tell, right? It wasn't It's
Yes.
not a re-implementation of something else.
Yes.
And I say this only because, like, you know how um, Disney and Marvel and other game, and Star Wars and everything else in that umbrella tends to have licensed versions of other games. There's
Mhm.
Star Wars Carcassonne, there's Munchkin, Marvel Munchkin, there's Marvel Splendor,
Mhm.
and all these things. And to be fair, Disney has their share of reskin games, like many, many versions of Monopoly. And what's this? Uh, oh, many versions of The Amazing Labyrinth
Yes.
that are like different Disney themes.
Typically, it's easier to slap onto an IP on an existing game and sell it, relying on the fact that the game has, in many ways, proven its playability.
Yes.
But Villainous is one of the games designed by Prospero Hall, who is known also, well, I'm not sure if it's a collective or if it's an individual,
Okay.
but the designer is known to have made Back to the Future, Black Mirror, Nosedive, the Bob Ross Art of Chill game,
We love the Bob Ross
the
game.
Jaws board game, the Choose Your Own Adventure, House of Danger game, and others.
Oh,
So
he does seem to work on other IPs a lot.
yeah, there is a familiarity with dealing with intellectual property as far as Prosper Hall is concerned. And
Mm.
Villainous, admittedly, is one of those games that you would either enjoy how it hits the themes of the subject matter or hate the fact that it feels like it's all these different things cobbled together. Because
Mm.
that's what the game tries to do. It has the stories of different villains from different shows or different movies all in one experience.
Now, okay, on the whole, Disney has a weird track record of figuring out how to make the most of its villains. We know that the Disney villains are practically a sub brand in itself, right up there with the Disney princesses.
Mhm.
But it's hard to celebrate the bad guys of anything. The closest we've gotten was that weird Disney villains kiddie
The
TV,
Descendants.
the Descendants musical, which is like, okay, so they're the kids of the villains, but even the villains are not quite
Mhm.
as villainy as they used to be. Plus, it has music, so then it's like less threatening. So yeah, there's that. And then we've seen limited incarnations of the villains at the Disney parks. You don't see rides, of course, dedicated to them, but there have been some attractions, and typically Halloween, they get a lot of features.
Mhm.
So, again, Disney doesn't have the greatest track record of figuring out what to do with their villains because it means celebrating the bad guys.
I think that's where they first encountered the marketability of the villains.
Hmm.
When they started celebrating a lot of the Halloween events with bigger floats, bigger
Yeah, this
bigger
is, I think
displays.
it's Mickey Mouse's Not So Scary Halloween with the big show that features even the witches from, oh my god, what's this? Oh my god, why I can't remember the title now suddenly.
I will not help you.
Oh,
Aha!
no.
This is a rare occasion. But yeah, upon seeing the popularity of the villain surge and seeing how much they had their own fan bases, they realized,
Oh, Karen mentions there's a makeup line by MAC Cosmetics.
yes, there is as well. And it's all about now, squeezing the IP. As much as it sounds like it's a villainous thing to do, villainous. The point is, if you do have intellectual property and you can make money out of it, why not?
Hocus Pocus. How could I forget? Okay.
As much as people will say, they're squeezing the life out of the IP and all of that, the fact is, thanks to such approaches, reinventions, or reinterpretations, the IP stays strong. Can you imagine if someone at some point in time said, we had enough Romeo and Juliet, and no one started making their own twists and turns on that story?
It's Mitch who technically requested this subject
Mhm.
last year, and then we waited for our expansion to arrive before we talked about it. Okay. So okay, then that's our big preamble about the villains. And
Mhm.
a lot of us love the villains, especially as you grow older, you commiserate more with the villains. So let's talk about Villainous. So Disney Villainous, as a card game, it plays for 2 to 6 players.
Yes.
Which is kind of nuts. I think we've talked about on the show previously that games tend to max out at 4
For being the magic number.
and then get weird at 5 and start to break at 6. To be fair, this game is no exception. At 5 to 6 players, it's very clunky, but it's still an interesting adventure.
Mhm.
Okay, but so Disney Villainous is a 2 to 6 player game. Um, what are the mechanics of the game? Can we look at the official listing? I just want to highlight. I just want to see how they
Yeah,
define
so the
it.
game has hand management.
That's true.
It has variable player powers because each place set you use, whether it's Hook or Ursula or so on and so forth, has their own set of abilities and weaknesses and strategies,
I like that it also has the mechanic of take that.
which is basically one player doing something and says to another player, "You, you take this effect or you suffer from this," which is not often seen in games. I mean, there's a lot of games that do have indirect conflict, and we talked about this when we talked about Euro games. How
Yeah,
there's a lot of you're doing your own thing, and the most I'll do is I'll stop you from getting that space.
yeah. It's like I prevent you from taking the move, but then you can always take another move.
But Disney Villainous actually has more direct interaction, and this is represented by the fake cards.
yes.
Um,
So let's move into the base set. Will provide you 6 different villains, and the art of this game is super beautiful. I
Mhm.
cannot get over the way that is rendered. They could have been lazy and just have directly lifted, grabs from the movies, as you know, especially the classic animation ones. But no, they had new art commissioned based on scenes from the movie, but it's done in this beautiful, soft, highly evocative style that's
Mhm.
highly detailed. That I don't know. I mean, I'm not an artist, so I can't really describe the movement. It looks painted to me. It feels painted.
There is that sadness, though, that as far as the credits are concerned, there are no officially listed artists,
Mm,
and I don't know.
that is weird.
I don't know if that's a sign that there was some sort of licensing deal with the art originally coming from Disney, but they can't therefore credit the because it's now owned as
Or
property
is
of
it
Disney.
like within Ravensburger? And guys, it's Ravensburger again, who also
Um,
did like Jaws.
So it might be just not an individual, so we can't cite it as a name, but
Mm,
it's the
it's a
company.
team.
It's the company
Hi,
team
RJ.
working on the art. So it could be something like that. But it's sad that we can't identify the artist because
The art is gorgeous.
the art of the cards is gorgeous. The art of the back of the cards is amazing.
The art of the board, the realm boards.
and
So,
since we're
oh my
talking
god.
about it, we might as well start showing it.
Yes. All right. So in Disney Villainous, and it's funny, we weren't
It's a mess.
we weren't even committed to this game till we got this second hand again. It's
Mhm.
like it was like we weren't sure that are we gonna get the Disney game? Okay. But each villain has their own realm. And okay, look at that Queen of Hearts. And the realm has a quote, and your realm player board pa-pam, will highlight 4 locations. And each location will have 3 to 4 action spaces. And these circles represent the action spaces.
So there's a board for each player,
It's like a storybook.
and each player is basically a villain. In this case, we have Jafar, we have Hook, we have Ursula. The board itself is functional because it represents the different locations that they can visit, as well as what we call the possible actions they can do in a space. Notice that some spaces have actions in the top and the bottom. And that is important because, as you can see in the top, there is a slot-like area
For a card.
which gets covered by the heroes when they try to hinder your plans.
But we'll get to that in a bit.
Each player has 2 decks to contend with.
Yes.
We have the villain deck itself, which is the deck of cards representing the villain.
And
look at
the
that.
back of each
beautiful
card has unique art that is practically a summary of the movie,
Mhm.
but from the perspective of the villain.
And then you have the white cards, which sadly is not getting visibly
But it has the
seen,
same card art, but then against white.
which represents the fake cards showing the heroes that are trying to stop the villain. So just as the villains might have Flotsam, that eel that was helping Ursula, you will have the hero cards having Sebastian, who is out there to make life miserable for Ursula. Because this game has you playing the villains, meaning you actually want to beat the good guys.
Now, each villain's board also summarizes in the bottom what your objective is. And in addition to that, I gotta pull it out.
Yeah.
Oop, where to go?
The guide card. There, that one.
Each villain has a little pamphlet which summarizes how their deck is supposed to work and how they win. And that is one of the key sort of revolutionary parts of the design of this game, is that similar to Root, which we've talked about, we haven't talked about Root, I can't remember. But similar to Root, where every faction has a unique path to victory, same with villains. So to some degree, you might argue that each villain is practically playing solitaire in their respective board. They have a specific objective they have to hit on their own. For example, Ursula must retrieve King Triton's trident and crown, and then bring those items back to her witch's lair. Her main challenge is that one of her realm locations is on land, and she can't go there until she transforms. The Queen of Hearts wants to do the perfect game of croquet, and then she will just need to score a perfect hit. And it's funny how that mechanic is played out. Maleficent must have curses in all 4 parts of her realm board.
Wait. It's deep inside. There. Maleficent.
See? Dragony. Okay. Oh. Captain Hook must find the map to the Lost Boys location, get Peter Pan out, and then defeat Peter Pan at the Jolly Roger. And that's a specific location, so he needs to drag Peter Pan over for the final confrontation. Jafar, of course, must find the Cave of Wonders, must retrieve the lamp, must
take control of the genie.
Take control of the genie, and then drag everything back to Agrabah. And like, my gosh. And then Prince John, where's his booklet? Anyway, Prince John, he just wants to accumulate a lot of money. That's essentially Prince John's menu. Oh, where is it?
It might be here.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get there.
Or worse, it was mixed in with the other box, which is a possibility.
It's inside his player board. Haha! Okay. And these are just the 6 base villains, the 6 villains in the base game. And it's already a tremendous challenge. Some people can only win at the start of their turn. Some villains can win instantly, like Prince John. Prince John's start of turn. Captain Hook, once he defeats Peter Pan, it's instant. Once the Queen of Hearts knocks her perfect shot, then she wins. So it's varying things. How many cards you can play in a turn and all these things are really determined by your player board. So at the most basic is that you need to gather power, which is the currency of the game. So it's like the universal mana that is the cost for all cards. And some cards are free, but most will have a 1 to 3 or 4 sometimes power cost to bring the game to bring the card into play. Cards are many types. There are allies, who are your little henchmen who can help you, and the number of allies varies based on the villain. For example, Ursula only has Flotsam and Jetsam, but Prince John has the Rhino Guards, has Hiss, has the Archers,
Trigger.
He has a lot more options. Then many of them also have items, which are fixed things that can provide special powers. Captain Hook has a lot of items, from cannons to and all these things. And then Prince John had the golden arrow and blah 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 blah. And then there's sort of the instant effects. My washing machine is going into an error state.
The effects come in 2 ways.
One moment, you keep going.
There are effects that you trigger, such as in this case, Imprison, that allows you to move a hero to a prison. But there are also effects that are triggered when it's not your turn. This is an example, which is cowardice. And if you can read here, no, you will not be able to. I will read it aloud. It says, during their turn, if another player has 3 or more allies in the realm, you may play cowardice and play an ally from your hand for free. So the game adds that element of as others are playing their turn, they might end up triggering one of your cards and you get cowardice! You get to yell it out and activate it. And it's always a fun moment as well.
And okay, because most of those particular cards that are the only cards you can play in another player's turn tend to be one word statements. Then you totally get to be a villain and shout them out. And things like treachery, deception. And it just wins out that way.
I'll move this to the white so it's more visible. There you go.
One of the biggest draws, though, of the main box of at least villains across the board are the player tokens. And your player avatars are wonderfully evocative of the different villains. This person that looks like he's in a dress, it's Captain Hook. That's his hat. And it's stylish to his waistcoat and all these things. And of course, Maleficent has the horns. Ursula can totally throw her curves around. Jafar almost looks like an eagle in his evil shape. The Queen of Hearts, of course, has a heart. And then Prince John is part chalice part crown thing. Okay. It's a great set. And I love the implications of the design.
Not so great, but still nicely useful is the plastic mold.
This little cauldron is supposed to be where you put all the power, and it is pretty thin plastic.
But it's nice enough that it allows you to have a centerpiece in the middle of the game where everyone digs to draw their power.
Yeah, and then they made the shapes very interesting so that you can kind of see the power from any angle, and that super helps.
So note that so far we have only discussed the main game. And we've already featured that many figures, that many villains. But wait, there's more. Because the game has had 3 expansions so far as the Disney line is concerned.
We haven't even gotten to the others.
It has even other things coming up. So let's focus on the Disney line first.
Which was first?
I believe it was Wicked that came out first.
They both came out in the same year, kasi that's the problem. That's like my conundrum. I think this was first. Okay. I think so, regardless, because in 2019, 2 expansions came out. I'm pretty sure this is the first one, which is Wicked to the Core. Wicked to the Core gave us Hades from Hercules, Dr. Facilier from the Frog Prince. Okay, what do they call that again? Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
And then Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove. And again, great figures. So Hades is a tower in his own right. Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong about Yzma. Sorry, it's the Evil Queen. Evil Queen. Yzma's in the other box. The Evil Queen from Snow White. And Facilier is like pretty fly. He's a hat on a stand with a feather. So that kind of stands out. And again, technically though, each expansion box can be played on its own because it once again gives you the guide cards. It gives you your player boards.
They officially list it as from 2 to 3 players only because it only offers 3 characters. But you can easily combine it with any of the other villainous boxes.
Oh, and it's once again mixed up.
Yeah, because they were standing boxes when we were.
Yeah. And standing is always like a challenge.
So you have everything from True Love's Kiss, from the Wishing Well. For those who are playing with Sleeping Beauty, then people like Dopey show up to help out.
But if you have Hades, you have Titans that come to your board.
Sleeping Beauty, Snow White.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. Okay, and to stress the fact that it's playable on its own, each expansion box still gives you some of the tokens you need. It's like new additional power tokens, additional lock tokens, and stuff for your realms. So it is arguably said that you don't need the base game to play any of the expansions,
Mhm.
which is fascinating. Um, quick overview of the new villains in this set.
Mhm.
Facilier is tricky because he must have the talisman and successfully rule New Orleans. And he only is able to rule New Orleans when he casts a particular spell coming out of his fortune deck, which
Mhm.
he suddenly creates a secondary pile. So
He has to
again,
dig through to
he has to
uncover
dig
them.
through for stuff.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the evil queen wants to be the fairest of the land. She must defeat Snow White. It sounds very easy. It isn't necessarily. And then Hades. Hades is tricky because he has to get the Titans out, and three of the Titans must manage to get all the way to Mount Olympus. And man, so many of the powers against him keep pushing him back. Oh, in our excitement to talk about how the villains work, we haven't really talked about the fate decks.
Yeah.
What are the fate decks? The fate decks represent the challenges that are placed in the way of each villain. In other words, it's the good guys.
Mhm.
So all the villains will have two realm spaces that allow them to trigger fate. And they don't trigger their own fate, except for like people like Hope. He has a special
Mhm.
thing. They don't trigger their own fate. They will trigger the fate of another player.
Mhm.
And that is an opportunity for directly messing around with someone else. So you will say, I will trigger fate for you, Toby. And this will reveal the top two cards of his fate deck. And then then I will get to choose one of the two that will be played against him.
That allows you to play certain heroes to block out later spaces that the villain might have wanted to use, or maybe it'll allow them to empower them with items that make them stronger. Or worse, it might be effect cards which directly conflict or mess up the villain's plans. If the Queen of Hearts was trying to prepare the soldiers for Croaky, then the card effect might force the cards to turn back into guards and no longer be in position. If it was for Dr. Facilier to find the spirits from the piles, maybe it allows you to mess them up and hide them again. If it was about becoming human and luring the trident back to the castle, it might be stealing the trident away, because I think it was it Flounder or was it Sebastian who could steal the trident and swim away?
Flounder. Flounder is super annoying, guys. Okay, and so on and so forth, and like for Prince John, dealing with Robin Hood and his forces will steal power away from him, because of course they steal from the rich to give to the poor.
Mhm.
So that's a great mechanic. And what we liked about that, particularly when we first talked about it, is that it was a way to keep the different IPs protected. Each movie is consistent with its original movie narrative.
Yes.
You don't have Titans invading Wonderland.
Yes.
You don't have Flotsam and Jetsam swimming into Agrabah.
Mhm.
So none of that nonsense. Instead, each is kept unique and separate and protected. So that's a great way to do it.
So currently, we have 9 villains. There's more.
Yeah, so in 2020, they released 2 expansions very shortly after the other. And I'm kind of impressed. So this is Evil Comes Prepared, and yes, it's Scar. And it's just fascinating that how they got to bring up stuff so quickly. So this set features one of my favorite figures because it has Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. How obscure is that? But he's a great villain because he has this convoluted plan to take over England. But if
Mhm.
he fails the plan, his objective flips over and he becomes sort of very Jekyll and Hyde and just the bestial brute. And his only goal is to defeat the mouse detective. And
Mhm.
he doesn't care anymore about the queen robot and all these things. Scar, of course. Although I'm like not my favorite figure,
Mhm.
it's very flame-like with tusks, and it's okay. He's like a weird little torch.
Scar gathers strength for the succession pile. which he gathers from the different places and he tries to make sure that they're all in his favor. And then we have
Yzma. Okay, Yzma's figure is bizarre. It's like it totally works though for that skinny little weirdo.
one moment of triumph approaches. Her goal is to defeat Cusco using Kronk, which is an interesting thing to think about.
It's such a difficult mechanic. Okay, she needs to defeat one particular hero with one particular ally. And Kronk's main mechanic is that as things progress, if he starts gathering power to himself,
Mhm.
and if he gathers too much, he becomes a good guy, which is very in tune with the movie.
Mhm.
So that's a point. And Karen already agrees. Flounder is so annoying. Yes. So we're not done. And which is like our copy finally arrived from the US this week of the latest villainous expansion for the Disney side, which is perfectly wretched. And as you can see from the box silhouette, your main claim to fame is that, oh my God, we have Cruella de Vil. And that's also why we're doing this today, because,
The
there's the
trailer came
Cruella
out.
trailer that came out. Once again, semi-standalone. You have enough for 3 players to play on their own.
We'll start with Cruella, only because
Super popular, Cruella de Vil. And Cruella de Vil, she needs to start her turn with 99 captured puppies. To be fair, the puppies come in denomination of 11 and
Or
22.
so
so
it's faster to collect them.
counting ones and twos.
But it's still a challenge to do so because there's a lot of people standing in your way. The figure is somewhat phallic, I will attest.
It's supposed to be a fur coat with a black and white scheme, but the back of the fur coat,
Yeah.
a little mushroomy. There was a Target exclusive edition of the game with a very Dalmatians focused cover and a slightly different Cruella figure with like polka dots. We thought we were gonna get it, we didn't, but it's okay. Admittedly, I still like this more because it's in tune with
With everyone else.
everyone else.
Yeah. Of course, we have her.
Mother Gothel from Tangled. Her figure
Is basically the
is
flower.
not the best. It doesn't. I feel like it doesn't evoke her well enough compared to like some of these other things. And I know the flower was central to the story of the
Mhm.
movie, but does this really signify Mother Gothel in itself? Or our challenge is that we already have 3 figures who are reddish orange, so we can't give her something in the same color scheme. I don't know. So yay, you get gold. But her challenge is that Rapunzel.
So Rapunzel,
Rapunzel
will
keeps moving away.
Yeah, and you can collect trust tokens to represent her gaining Rapunzel's trust. And if you start your turn with 10 trust tokens, you win. And trust me, it's hard because Rapunzel keeps running away. Even if your villains knock her unconscious, she'll wake up and start running again. And every time she reaches the city,
She loses trust in Mother Gothel
So
because
it-
she's getting awakened.
it is such a frustrating thing to keep her in check. Doesn't she realize it's dangerous out there? But I think the thing I love the most about this expansion,
Oh my god,
Was
it was
this
so
villain?
surprising.
which we did not expect at all,
Guys, it's Pete from Steamboat Willie. His figure is just this fat little ball.
and it's
Um,
amazing because yes, look at those locations.
His realm board is black and white. All his player cards are black and white.
You have the
And-
service station, the airport, of course. You have the
Podunk Landing, where Steamboat Willie actually will be.
and the frontier town. Even the cards representing the heroes that he goes up against will evoke the old timey-wimey looks.
Classic
Oh,
Pluto.
look at that.
I'm more like looking for.
There, of course, Mickey. See, and look that Pete cannot complete goals.
And that's Pete's main objective. That he will have 4 secret goals on his realm locations. Look at that Donald Duck. It's so hungry. Okay. And he has to finish all 4 goals. And
Mhm.
the goals are secret as far as everyone's concerned. So people don't know what he's trying to achieve. But it's things like having 4 allies in this space and stuff. The most annoying of his goals is that he has this card called where is that? He has this card called Play a Game, which is basically play the top 2 cards of his deck and he gains power equal to the sum of the costs. And he needs to gain at least 4 power. Most of his cards cost 1 and 2. So it is hard. It is hard. I thought I was going to win because I was Pete the one time we tried playing it. And oh my god, I had completed all of my 3 other goals. I had played the game every turn. It's like every other turn. Let's play a game. Let's play a game. I never won.
So going through the comments real quick, M San TV, which is
Mitch.
of course, mentioned the design is amazing. It's based off the movie. Who is the most badass villain? Okay, that's an interesting question.
Well, I think Cruella is still a very dangerous character because of all the villain goals. She's literally collecting puppies throughout the
However,
game,
it's the Roadster that does the work for her.
and then and her henchmen.
I feel though Ratigan is the one who gets his hands dirty.
Nope, I can argue now that Pete
It's Pete who rushes into things.
does direct damage. Pete is able to defeat heroes on his own. He has a card, and I can't get over the Pete deck. Surprisingly, he has a card that is called Airstrike. He gets into a biplane and he can move to any location, and that's rare. You can't typically move your villains on their own, and he defeats any hero at the space he moves to instantly. It doesn't look at power. He just defeats them because it's the villain himself shooting people down. So that is pretty conniving. Captain Hook is a little convoluted, but ultimately his goal is to quote unquote defeat Peter Pan. But given that he has to gather all his pirates, cannons, and the like, you know he's killing Peter Pan, right?
And then there is the added hilarity of the crocodile messing up his plans. Take a photo of all the villains' avatars. This is what we have so far.
There is already another expansion announced for 2021.
For
They
2021,
are doing 2 expansions a year.
they are releasing what is called Despicable Plots. The cover already is implying it's Gaston.
Oh my god!
So we can only wait and see what will happen. There are already some teaser photos of the figures.
Oh no, it's there already.
But we already have Lady Tremaine from Cinderella, the Horned King from the Black Cauldron,
Oh my god!
and Gaston from Beauty and the Beast
Wait,
coming
but
up.
who the heck is Lady Tremaine? Is that from the movie Cinderella? Like the live action Cinderella? I'm not familiar with this villain. Lady, or is that the name of the mother? I never knew.
There.
Oh my gosh!
And they have pretty good avatar tokens.
Oh,
Gaston being
okay.
his bust.
I stand corrected. Lady Tremaine is the stepmother from Cinderella. I didn't know she had a last name. Oh, this is gonna be a special edition again. Let's not bother. Let's not bother. Exciting stuff.
Looking at it real quick, there's Belle's house. There's Gaston's objective. I can't read it. It's really blurred out.
Oh, how about that? Nope.
No, it doesn't seem readable. It's intentionally blurred out. So you compare it to that text.
Okay. They're really hiding the objective.
Yeah. And of course, for those who might not be that much into Disney, there is a Marvel Villainous coming out as well. Or is it already
It's out. It's already in stores.
In
I'm
Marvel
not sure if we're
Villainous?
gonna get it, but I think we're gonna get it.
You have the same game system, more or less, and it has Thanos, Hela, Ultron, and 2 other villains soon to be announced.
Well, by now you should know they are.
Well, that's what they say here in the write-up right now.
yeah. Now I'm like, Marvel.
Here, I'm seeing... I think one of them's Kree from the looks of it. Yeah, it does look like Kree. You have Hela, soon Odin and all his holdings shall be mine.
Oh, there's the Killmonger for Black
Killmonger.
Panther.
Okay.
That's one. Uh, 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 mm, wow, it's a lot of Black Panther.
Here. Taskmaster and Killmonger.
Oh, 5 only,
That's 5.
not 6.
So that's something you might want to check out as well. But Villainous,
I want to get a
quite
copy of that.
frankly, just seeing those figures, it's such a delight. Karen mentioned they look all like adult toys. They do.
Yes, but I feel like if you want to play the villain, you're probably a little older than your average Disney viewer.
But yes, look at that. Look at that. I'm gonna drop them. I'm there. See, I already dropped one.
See, it's Mother Gothel. Nobody likes this figure. Needs work, guys. This is not up to par with the rest of them. I mean, I like a lot of them being very like high conceptual. I mean, because if you look at Isma, they really wanted to convey how skinny she is and the like. Versus technically Corella is skinny, but her fur coat really makes up for things. And Pete is just a barrel with a hat. So, yay.
So thoughts on the game. It's quite new gamer friendly, but it is also a lot of information to take in. If you're playing this for the first time, I don't even don't feel bad if you don't win. Just get a feel for how it works, because sometimes some villains feel easier than others. Sometimes
Like
it
Prince
also,
John feels very
yeah,
straightforward.
and some of them also feel like you're being punished more than others.
It's like you're on the world's most epic fetch quest.
Mhm. But it's actually all nicely interactive. The trick is to not let up in throwing fates at other people.
Mitch is asking, is Mother Gothel? It's literally the flower. It's not even hair. It's the flower.
Mhm.
It's so weird. Anyway, yeah. And this the variation on the play means that you have to learn your own villain, and to some degree, you need to learn everybody else's villain in order to know like how to counter them, or at least know when they're close to winning. Like I know in like our early games, especially when you play with the likes of Maleficent and Pete, for example, suddenly they start completing their goals very quickly in the beginning, and then suddenly there are 2 realms that are cursed in Maleficent's realm, and that means they're halfway to winning, while Jafar is still digging for the lamp. So it's very tricky. Mitch says, observe other player boards, as in observe. Nanalo si Toby kahit no one is playing Fates on him.
That's true. If
you also need to
ignore
watch.
others, you
Yeah.
will actually help them win. So you have to pay attention. You have to be a good villain.
Yeah, you need to be villainous to everyone else and not just to your friends.
The game includes a fate token, and that token only comes in when you're playing a set number of players.
5 and 6.
It makes sure that you don't always focus on just one player with fate effects.
It's a lightning bolt and a cloud. There, okay, nice.
So by using, but when this fate token's in play, if I were hit with a fate effect, I would hold the token. This means I can't be the next target of a fate effect. It has to be someone else. And it's
But
a
you can
small-
alternate. You
Yeah.
can like target you, target you.
It's a
target you,
small
target
change that allows you some breathing room when you feel like you're being ganged up upon in the game. But at the same
you. But
time,
it only happens at 5 players.
yes.
That's the problem. And so yeah, at a 4-player game, where the game really starts to like get a little tight. Yes, you can have all 3 other players dedicating their turns to playing Fate against you. So it kind of, admittedly, in the times we play through Villainous, it feels a lot like Munchkin, if you've played Munchkin, where towards the end, you're all dancing at level 9, and one of you is bound to win. And then every time someone gets triggers endgame, everybody just dogpiles on that person and prevents it until they run out of cards. So Villainous has a tendency to fall into that trap, I will admit. And that's tricky. Mitch asking, ideal size of the game is 4. I would argue 3.
Yeah. I also feel 3 is better. At 4, you do feel that so many things are happening before you have your next turn. So it's a bit tricky. Even if you're all really just having one turn in between rounds. I would also state that some are easier than others, but that's why the fates are important. Um, like Prince John, who just has to accumulate power, his heroes steal that power away. The heroes that block him block and cover the spaces that give him power. So you can't really not throw fates at him. Others like Ursula and the like, Ursula is handicapped by the fact that she only has um, two allies helping her, and the rest of her power is based on the contract she makes. And if you find a way to make sure those allies are disabled, you really slow her down. Other villains like Hook are the ones you should time your fates, because in the earlier part of the game, fating Hook helps him because it helps him find what he's looking for.
Hook actually is one of the rare villains who has cards that allows him to play his own fate deck, because he has to find the map and then later he has to find Peter Pan, both of which are only in the fate deck.
Mhm. But ultimately, all fating heroes out helps you slow the opponents down, because it reduces moves sometimes from 4 possible things they can do down to 2. Some, like those in Alice in Wonderland, can even go as far as affecting nearby moves because they can
They get
sideways
big.
when they get big. So consider maximizing that when you can. What else?
But the design of the different, okay, I will concede across Villainous, the fact that we have what 12 different villains on the on display now. What the designers really did was created 12 different games practically, because each villain has their own mechanic, has their own set of fate cards that are designed to counter their specific victory condition,
Mhm.
and it all works out. And I swear it's super specific. For example, like Fusilier, his opposing fate cards add trash to his fortune deck, so he can't find the ability to rule New York.
Mhm.
And then Pete's reveals his goals to everyone and makes it more difficult to achieve his goals. Uh, Jafar, they keep stealing items from him, so you can steal things like the lamp and drag it away from the palace where Jafar's trying to do. So, um, I always kind of get overwhelmed by like how much work went into this, and all the thought that went into designing the specific villain decks and the countering fate decks, and making sure that for the most part it feels balanced.
Now, a large part of what a large reason, I suspect a large reason we like this game a lot is because it, in many ways, is very similar to Marvel Legendary, in the sense that each hero, in this case, each villain, actually has a predetermined strategy or combo
That's true.
that you have to discover. And if you're lucky enough to map things out to be able to trigger it, it feels awesome to use.
Yeah, and I think that we're gonna start wandering into the tips realm as we get here. So, like at its most basic, a lot of the villains, for example, require specific cards from their villain deck to come out. So, like, was just Ursula needs the crown to come out, and I always can't think of examples now, but things like that. For villains like that who need specific cards, you will notice that one of the action spaces is to discard cards. And you are free to discard as many as you want, because you will draw up back to 4 at the end of your turn.
Which typically means you can discard 4 cards at most, because you tend to only have 4 cards.
Yes.
It's
Except
so
if
far
you're Jafar.
Yeah, it's only Jafar so far who has the power to have more than 4 cards.
Oh my god, because Jafar is a bastard. Okay, but then, and that's how Mitch was like asking about a tip on refreshing cards. So if you don't play any cards in your turn, or if you play but draw cards in your turn and end with 4 cards, you will not get any new cards. And if your goal is tied to finding specific cards, then that's like tip number 1. Be prepared, dun, 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 to throw away cards. And you'll always argue like, but this card seems so useful. Believe me, all the cards in the villain deck are potentially useful. Especially you keep waiting for you keep holding on to the cards that you can play on other players' turns, and you're always waiting like, when do I get to interrupt them? When do I get to interrupt them? Okay, don't get distracted. You have your own goal first, so keep going. That's like my first big tip.
Yeah, you have to recognize that getting the cards you need is far more important than waiting for that moment. And in many ways, the game is actually kind to you because you're always reshuffling back, you're always refilling back to full, and you're not really adding any new cards. So you don't really slow yourself down unless it's more of the other cards you didn't want to draw from your own deck, which does happen sometimes.
I can't fault you though, because then it's like always conditions are the best cards. Because they say pride, injustice.
There are also the factors you have to consider that despite the ability to vanquish opponents using your allies, it is never without a cost. Allies are discarded after vanquishing heroes. And there is no change. So even if you had, let's say, 6 points worth of allies to vanquish the 4-point worth hero, all 6 points of allies are lost, save for specific cards. So be ready to make such sacrifices. And if it feels painful that you did a lot of hard work to get those people ready and then you'll just lose them, just remember you're the villain. They're replaceable. Just draw more cards and play them again. What else?
Especially in longer games, like, don't worry, the deck will reshuffle. You will run through the whole deck. It is, I haven't really counted, like, but they don't feel like more than 40 card decks if from a Magic the Gathering guesstimate level. Although these are high quality cards, guys, they're very thick card stock, nicely laminated, luxurious, and that. And then, what's this? There's no getting around that. You must understand your victory condition. You must understand your victory condition, and it's very tricky. And the fact that your player board reminds you of your goal the whole time because it's on the leftmost panel, and then in addition, you have a whole pamphlet that stresses how you win. You must understand your victory condition. Because sometimes you'll get distracted by like all the hero cards that get played in your realm and you want to defeat all the heroes. But you know, sometimes if they don't prevent your victory condition, ignore them.
Yes,
don't let those peasants get in your way.
What else? I guess the last one I could add would be don't be afraid to fate if you're not sure what to do that round. Sometimes it can feel analysis paralysis in the sense that you look and you can see there's 3 other locations you can jump to. Do I get more power? Do I go to the spot that allows me to play 2 cards? If I go to the spot, I don't really think I'll use the other moves anyway. But if any of those spots have a fate option and you're not really sure what to do the fate option. Because to the very least, you're going to delay another player, buying yourself more time.
And you know, I mean, like, you will feel guilty about affecting other players. But at the same time, the stories will not play out unless you fate one another. And there, especially characters like Hook and even Ursula, if you don't fate a player all throughout the game, sometimes it still prevents them from winning because they will still need elements from the hero deck to come out. And things like some of the condition cards are based on another player defeated a hero of 3 or more, or things like that. Those conditions aren't going to happen unless people are fating one another. So please don't be afraid to fate. It is, yes, to some degree, it will slow down another player, but 2, it just helps all the Disney stories happen. And I think that's still the main sort of goal of the game, is that you're celebrating this long history of the Disney franchises and just go for it.
And I think that's what is, in the end, the charm of this game. Whether you win or lose, knowing the stories that these villains are part of, and then playing through a game that's literally designed to make you feel that story, but also taking into account that the cards still come out in a different way in a random sequence, you find yourself crafting new stories. You find yourself having stories where Ursula never became human and yet somehow still succeeded in stealing the trident. Or you'll have stories where Hook gets, chomped by the crocodile 4 times in a row because things are just that bad. So it's an interesting way to enjoy the movies and the source material even more.
I mean, ultimately, all the Disney movies, I'm sorry, the villain never wins any of the movies. So to allow one player to actually win is a rarity in itself. But the experience as a whole is super fun.
I remember before the other expansions came out, we were already trying to theorize on some of the cards, and we were like, it's going to be hard to have Scar because
His goal is to kill Mufasa.
are we really going to have parents, see their kids go, oh, I have to kill Mufasa.
I thought Cruella was impossible because her goal is to make a dog fur coat, but they did it, and as long as she captures the puppies, her story ends. Like
because
she got them
we kind of know what happens next.
right.
And I think that's what I like about how they've done this. They still tried to distill the essence down, but they also still tried to make it feel. It doesn't feel wrong to play the villains,
Yes, that is true.
and
But it doesn't try to make them not villainous.
yes,
Which is
there,
like what a
that
lot
is
of the
exactly it.
movies are doing now
So
with these
so
reimaginings.
so that's why I think I like this more than a lot of the reimaginings.
Ratigan!
I like the stories we've created in this game compared to the movies we've seen. And I'm a bit worried about how the Marvel villainous thing will approach that.
They added another element. There are other cards I forgot.
And I also even now wonder if they'll be forced to like unify the Fate deck into some universal stack.
I think they did.
Because you'll then have all these repeating cards since it's the similar villains.
Mhm.
Heroes, sorry.
Mhm. Anyway.
Specialty cards add to each villain's ability, making them more formidable and more specialty cards are played. So they have, I guess that's like the effects before.
Yeah. Oh, I can't read based on the. So there are these things, but these events happen everywhere,
Mm.
and then
The universal events.
yeah. Then, for example, helicarrier alert only draw up to 3 cards.
Mm.
Then it affects everyone. So that's annoying stuff. And they're fake cards. So things.
So with that, I guess we're nearing the end of the episode. So we know that we have the 3 new villains coming up. After those 3, who would you want to see?
Man, I thought we were never going to get the likes of Gaston because his goal is to kill the beast, right? So I'm guessing it's going to be a convoluted way of him winning Belle's heart.
And we were
Although
joking about
That
about
sounds
killing the
very
beast.
creepy. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I didn't think Cruella could be a villainous character.
I can't read it, but it's something like retrieve something characters. I think
Mm,
it's really
it's a trap. It's a trap.
See, retrieve all 8 obstacles,
Defeat or something.
something like that. Yeah.
Surmount.
But then there's dozens eggs as a card. There's LeFou. When performing a vanquish action in LeFou's location, all allies are returned to your hand instead of the discard pile.
Interesting.
So yeah, this looks fun.
Looks very promising. Okay. And so in terms of additional villains, I mean, what movies are we left with? I mean, like we've already gone to weird
Obstacles.
places.
Belle has no obstacles can be removed while Belle is
I
in
mean, this game has given me Ratigan, and we're going to get the Horn King from the Black Cauldron.
play. It's obstacles to Belle.
So he has like labors of Hercules.
Yeah,
Kinda.
which will probably be the father, one of the obstacles.
Yeah. Okay. But okay, I mean like my ultimate fan service moments are the fact that I got Steamboat Willie Pete, I have Radigan, and we're coming up with the Horn King. I'm kind of a happy camper. I don't know what else I want. Because I guess the one option is that if they find a way to make a villain out of the sword and the stone, but the witch really wasn't like a villain.
I want to see a Fantasia expansion.
Like you just want Chernobyl.
Yes.
He's literally the devil.
But that would be so awesome. And then everyone who's playing would be like dancing hippos, ballerina crocodiles, and stuff like that. And you're like, no!
Okay.
But
Okay,
I want,
that could be
I
awesome.
want that.
A Fantasia expansion could be awesome.
That would be.
What other movies are out there? I mean, like was this Mother Gothel already tells us that they're willing to touch on the more recent CGI
Mhm.
Disney movies. Mitch earlier was asking about Wreck-It Ralph, so yeah, that is possible. Although Wreck-It Ralph is one of those movies in the newer format where like nobody's really the villain because right? Everybody's just doing their thing.
So to go through the list real quick, we still have Amos Slade, the fox,
And the Hound. Okay.
We have Aunt Sarah from Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, that's not great.
We have the Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Pigs, which I'm surprised actually they haven't released yet.
That's a little
As
obscure.
one of the earlier
well, they
ones.
did Pete now only.
It's just that you would have thought they would have had Three Little Pigs as one of the classics.
Because it's only a short. It's not a movie.
True. We have, of course, the Hunchback with Frollo.
Ooh,
Which
we talked
would be
about
tricky.
this also being a dangerous thing to look at. Okay.
Madame Medusa and the Rescuers would be interesting.
Mm.
There's Hopper in A Bug's Life.
I don't want to touch Pixar because I've noticed none of these are Pixar.
Mhm.
So maybe not the Pixar stuff.
Pocahontas. That's Ratcliffe.
Oh my
Shan
god!
Yu
But that's another like
And Mulan.
his goal is to be creepy. Okay, and then
There's, of course,
Mulan.
Stromboli and Pinocchio.
Stromboli and the Coachman. They weren't like super mean, but I get it. Yeah. Sykes from Oliver and Company. Ooh.
But of course, you can go full Kingdom Heartsy and have everyone from the Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Barbosa, to
Mitch was saying Hans from Frozen, and yeah, because the fact that Tangled has already had a touch here, then we can totally get stuff. Although,
Judge Doom. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
oh my god,
Ah, that would be so awesome.
are there other franchises that could benefit from the villainous system? We know that Marvel has now dipped their toes in. I don't know if it's gonna, because it's obviously MCU tied.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we're gonna get a lot of them. I'm sure they're testing the waters with this first box.
I'd love to see Kingdom Hearts, of course, always.
Yes,
Just to have.
but that will cost them more in terms of
Yes.
IP. To
But
pay
can you
for.
imagine there would be a Final Fantasy VII set, a Final Fantasy VIII set, and then you have all the other pictures of Tron and
Mitch was saying Randall from Monsters Inc. But yeah, so like on the whole, I'm not sure. Like, I'm sensing they're not touching Pixar yet. I feel like the licensing for that's a bit more complicated, or they're doing this because, to be fair, when you think Disney villains, you think the classic 2D animation
Mhm.
villains. You don't automatically include the Pixar ones. And again, Pixar movies are more often than not a lot of the difference are very like internal struggle type movies, or
Mhm.
or your real enemy is sadness. So it's like things like that.
And then there is the existence of Epic Mickey, which
Mm.
is a different franchise altogether that has its own game line. It has this card-based game, which I don't think has garnered as much support as we have seen with others.
Yeah, it's not like the card games in Final Fantasy and things like that.
Because Epic Mickey does have the Power of Illusion game on that's the computer games.
Yeah,
But
they're
there is
console games, right?
also the Shadow Mickey card game, if I remember correctly.
I'm not super familiar with this. I've like seen Epic Mickey stuff in passing on YouTube, but I've not really looked into it. It's like, how about Star Wars? Maybe, but then I feel like also Star Wars just has a limited realm, because it's always like the Empire, right? For more often than not, and then the Sith, I guess. But I don't know, because it needs to be very distinct factions.
Yes.
So I think it's not a single story, and that's why Marvel has a good chance of making full use of the villainous system, because of the fact that different Marvel movies have different stories, whereas the Star Wars sets have been telling a single story across 6 or 9 movies, depending on your opinions of the things. So many notifications.
But what about the non-animated Disney stuff?
Live action Disney things?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the live action stuff. Because especially if it's just the live action adaptations of existing animated features. So
like High School Musical.
wow, this is the only reason why Toby brought this up. You realize how much Toby is into High School Musical? It's scary.
Or Freaky Friday.
It's just one of the first, and then one of the first things Toby made me do was watch these weird, like 90s chick flick.
What?
rom-com.
We're all in this together, love. You have
See, you've scrolled through the list twice
Enchanted.
now, and you can't bring things out. Enchanted, kaya pa. Enchanted at least is like, because it follows the classic Disney format. The rest, I don't know with you. I don't know.
George in the Jungle.
But yeah, okay. That's villainous. I don't know. Now that we have all these up, maybe we should do a photo shoot of the different avatars. But that's a lot of photos. And oh my god, I love them all. I do love this game. I do super love this game. Any last things on villainous?
I do hope that they continue to release expansions and don't go for a version 2.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I know that is what many do marketing wise, because it allows them to rejuvenate interest. It allows them to, you have people who already bought the earlier collections. The buy-in will still be there because they still want the new game. And then you'll have new audiences checking it out. But I always feel like whenever they do a version 2, there's the loss of momentum with what could have been more explored with the existing ones. So I really hope they don't.
We're looking at you, Great Western Trail. What is this? Second edition, 4 years after release of your first one. I judge you as I put my little people away. Okay. Okay, my main worry has been the speed of releases. The fact that we have had at least 12 characters out already. It's 633. It's 18 characters out already. And you're gonna have a full 24 out by the end of this year. They're running through their library very quickly. I know they're trying to capitalize on I guess it's strike while the iron's hot. If people already like the game, then maybe they will be willing to buy up all the other movies. But it's like it's a lot.
But that's not. I don't think that's Disney.
You think it's Ravenburger while they hold the license? That's also possible.
Because the license is definitely expensive. To get those stuff out while you can is always good.
Mitch asking, storage, can expansion join the base game?
No.
I think technically you could make space for it by taking out the lining and stuff.
But the expansions have nice sockets for each one, which is actually the sad thing about the base game.
Yeah.
The base game doesn't have that.
It's only the expansions that have nice slots for all the villains, whereas the base game
is
a container and a container.
The base game is we didn't have budget yet for nice containers, so it's all just in a box.
Yeah, so that's a constraint that you have to deal with, and that's why when you have the main game, You just stick them all in a bag, and you don't even like have a nice place to put them. It's just bag, 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 bag. So yeah, so I don't know if this game would ever deserve like a masterpiece edition that you know re-implements everything. Although the fact that they're now doing alternate exclusive versions of the boxes worries me a little. That they're trying to milk out money, and why is it Target? Just for a slightly different box and a slightly different, and only one of the figures being slightly different out of the three. That's a little annoying. That's a little annoying.
I think it's trying to tap on the collector's edition feel, sort of like how there were comics with foil covers.
Or Great Western Trail having a second edition.
Yeah, I think that's it though.
Second edition.
We have cards that we will have to rearrange.
Yeah, we've just totally messed up this box.
But otherwise, I think that is everything that we can share right now about Villainous. Highly recommended. If you're not ready to do a huge purchase with the base set, and admittedly it's going to be hard to find the base set, you can start with an expansion set that's still 2 to 3 players, so it's not bad at all. It's still
it's pretty solid.
It's still worth playing, and it's still worth checking out.
And you can try to focus on, I guess, the villains that you like the most, or the villains you are most familiar with. I mean, I'm super excited about Pete, but I know most of you haven't even heard of Steamboat Willie, and it's okay, you know. So, and these new sets. I mean, the next one, the distribution of characters is smart, because then you get the likes of Gaston, Beauty and the Beast. Oh my God, famous villain, Horn King, Black Cauldron. What the heck?
But at the same time, you now have people going, "Ito yung movie pala," and they start watching.
That is the trap, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Disney trap, trying to get you to watch their movies more.
Because ultimately,
everybody's got a weakness. Ooh, thanks, Hades.
But I guess that's all the time we have for this episode. We hope that you join us again. We had a lot of fun, and Friday is a bit tricky.
We're not sure about Friday tomorrow because Toby has family stuff to do. So we're not going to be together Friday night. Although we could do a Baduy Pride where we just pull in Toby as a guest module. Then I don't know. So we might not. Saturday, we also might not, because our game tends to run long for that one.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, sometimes we're just lazy. I gotta admit, I know we haven't been doing a lot of weekend shows recently. We've just been having too much fun on the weekend. And given how stressful the work week have been, the past few work weeks have been for us, we totally deserve a break. So yeah, weekends have been maximized.
But if you haven't, start watching WandaVision. It's so worth it.
Oh, yes. Oh my God, I want to talk about it when the season's over. And supposedly the last few episodes are going to be 1 hour long.
We will
1 hour episodes.
We will definitely have an episode.
And we're going to be like, screw it. Spoilers everywhere.
Or we'll talk about an episode as an episode. So we'll have 9 episodes for WandaVision. It's such a great show. But yeah, that's all our time for tonight. Thank you for watching.
If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. Once again, thank you, Mitch, for contributing most of the queue, but also requesting for Villainous early on, and we just kept saying we're not going to do it yet. We're going to wait for the expansion to get here.
Yes.
Okay. And then you can follow us on Twitter, AllTobyNoShade, RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
If you, feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. Let us know what you thought about Disney Villainous. Have you gotten to try it? Do you have a favorite character? Or do you have a character that you're super wishing for? And why is it the Horn King? You know?
Are you replaceable? If so, then maybe your boss is the villain.
Uh-oh. Maybe you are part of a fate deck. And then, of course, be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride.